is Noah. I'm a conservation student at the University of British Columbia located in Vancouver, and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about my Monstera Albo and how I got rid of stem rot. So when I first got my Monstera Albo, I was quite excited as it was my first really rare plant that I've added to my collection. The first thing I usually like to do when I get a new plant is inspect the roots. So I did that and everything looked okay. After inspecting the roots, I looked at the stem and unfortunately I saw a little black patch of mush on one of the sides of the stem. I quickly went on to Google to search up how to get rid of it, but every time I'd search up how to get rid of stem rot, it just automatically lead me to articles and pages on how to get rid of root rot. Although they're kind of the same, I kind of was unhappy with my research. So this is kind of a video on the steps I took to get rid of stem rot. So here's my Monstera Albo. It's kinda too bright to see, but it's still a little juvenile baby, so it has a lot of growing to do, but I'm really happy with its progress so far. I've had it for about a month already, and so far it's put out a lot of new roots, which I'll insert maybe on this side. And it also has a new leaf coming out. It's been growing rapidly the past week, which I'll also insert another video maybe on this side. Yeah, I'm really happy with the growth. It's just the stem rot kind of worried me and I kind of like stressed out a little bit, but with a little bit of care I was able to kind of get rid of it. So right there is where the stem rot was. It was really black and mushy. I'll try to insert a photo on what it looked like before. So right now it's kind of this brown color and it looks like it's calloused over. So the first way I tried to get rid of the rot was definitely making sure that the root system was okay. So I took it out of the 5-inch plastic pot it was in. It was kind of a dark brown pot that I got from the cellar. And I kind of fluffed out the moss a little bit and took out at least half of it because it was really jam-packed in there. I also made sure that it was kind of not soaking wet and just damp, so I did wring out the moss a little bit. You can't have a good plant with bad roots, so the root system is what I really kind of tried to make sure was okay once I spotted that rot. The second thing I did was change how it was planted, so I put it in this plastic pot with slits in it. So this is just an orchid pot that you can get at your local nursery. You're able to see the root growth. As you can see right there, there's a root that I can see growing. It's happy, there's a green root tip. So I would have never been able to see that if I left it in its nursery pot. The third thing I did was a matter of shifting the node above the moss. So this little node right here, the stem was actually touching the moss in its original pot, which kind of caused the rot to spread a little bit. And so I kind of lifted it up a tiny bit and planted the roots lower and just shifted the stem higher. And that seemed to have worked, so I'm happy about that. The fourth thing I did, I do not recommend at all. I was like, oh, it's kind of wet. What do you do when something is wet? You want to dry it off. How can you dry off something wet? With heat. So I grabbed my lighter and kind of lit the end on fire, and that did not work at all. So do not try doing that. You can try damping it off with a paper towel, but burning it will only cause more rot. So I kind of encourage a little bit more rot than it already had, which made me even more frustrated. So I decided to let it be and just ignore it, and whatever happens, happens. So step number 5 is what I kind of learned from the lady at the garden center. She told me to go to my local grocery store and buy 100% ground cinnamon and to dust it on top of the rotting areas. So I'll show you guys a tutorial on how I kind of did that. So I shifted the camera down a little bit so you guys can see what I'm doing. So right here I have my Monstera Albo and I'm gonna grab my cinnamon and a brush. So here's the cinnamon that I've used already. It's just 100% ground cinnamon. There's no added sugar in it, so just make sure it's 100% pure cinnamon because you don't want to add more mold or anything to it. And I also have this little paintbrush that I stole from my little cousin's painting kit. It works really well. It's nothing too fancy, but it's just a regular paintbrush, I guess. So now that you guys can kind of see what I'm doing, you guys can see the rot just right over here. I want to kind of hit that area and just a little bit around it. So it's really easy. You just kind of grab some cinnamon. You guys can see some cinnamon at the end of this guy. And then you just kind of slowly dab it on like this. Just till you can kind of see the granules sticking on to the rot. I like to do that. Give it another dust. This cinnamon is set aside just for my plant, so I'm just gonna go ahead and double dip. Don't kind of serve the cinnamon after you do that. Maybe it would be a better idea to kind of pour it in a little bowl and then do it, but again, this is just for my plants, so I'm gonna go ahead and double dip. I'm just gonna make sure that I grab some at the end. I'm gonna shake off a little bit. And then I'm gonna go in again and dab some on. I'm gonna go in by myself and kind of just fix it up a little bit, and I'll show you guys the end result. So here's a finished product. As you can see, it's nicely coated in that cinnamon powder. It looks pretty good right now. I think that's enough of a coat. It's really hard to kind of layer cinnamon, but I think that should be fine. I'm just gonna reapply it again maybe in 3 days once it all falls off. But yeah, it's just that simple to kind of get rid of rot. And step number 6, the last step, is I was able to grab this piece of terracotta from a broken pot that I had. So I smashed a terracotta pot and got the perfect small size to kind of place it underneath, because as you can see, moss tends to condensate, and I didn't want any moisture kind of getting onto the rot, because moisture only encourages more rot. It seemed to have helped dry off the rot on the stem, so that's just another thing to consider. I also want to keep in mind my watering. I've messed up twice already watering this plant. I kind of just dunked water into it and it started to kind of yellow. I don't know if you can see this part right here. Focus. Yeah, so it started to yellow a little bit, which kind of scared me, but I realized I was just kind of over-watering it. So I took it out of its pot again and wrung out the moss. I did this twice, so now I know better. So I bought this little spray bottle from the dollar store, and it just works just to spray around it and just let the water trickle down a little bit. And that worked the first time I tried it about a couple days ago, and it's drying really nicely now in between waterings. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I don't like sphagnum moss when it comes to taking care of this plant, because although I read that it does have some good sides and good properties to it, I'd rather plant it in a more airy soil mixture with bark and perlite, just because I know how to maintain the moisture in those mediums than moss. So I know it's kind of weird, moss should be easier to maintain, but when it comes to this plant, I think I would be better off planting this in an airy aeroid mixture. I'm gonna let this new growth kind of grow out first and see where that takes me, and kind of let this piece of rot kind of callus over a little bit more and harden. So that's what I want to do before I repot it. Thank you for watching my video. I'm definitely going to be making more videos on this Monstera Albo, as it's going to be quite the journey trying to keep this guy alive. The next video I want to film is probably how I repot it, and I hope that's in the near future, because I just want to get it into an aeroid mixture right away and take care of it that way. So again, thank you for watching my video. Click subscribe down below if you haven't already. Give me a thumbs up if you like my content, and turn on the bell notifications to see when I post the next time. Thank you again. Take care always. Bye.